The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv, and we're going to start off again with a little bit of crime issue, but I apologize. I don't have the dancing papers to show everybody because I got this last night, and of course I have actually things to do during it. In the morning, I got.
You have a life outside of this show?
I gotta take the dog out. I gotta feed the dog. I gotta feed myself and everything else, and then I gotta get to the show. And when I did take this and send it over to my email, and then I was gonna print it out.
Yeah.
But then I realized this thing was attached to an entire, Facebook page and a video, so you can't download the video.
Right.
I could download the video, but you can't show the video.
Right.
But I'll read the caption, because I do have it here, and it is one of the actual news sources that we have left in Fall River, which will segue us into something else. But Fall River Reporter. It may be only in the 50s, but it didn't stop several, quote, be on the lookouts, unquote, being issued by Fall River Police for erratic operation of off-road vehicles this weekend. And then they have a video complete with the audio of the revving engines. But, it wasn't this weekend, too. I told you, last weekend, or the weekend before that, I was driving down a Brayton Avenue extension, and I had three of them, and one of them's popping a wheelie on a dirt bike coming up on the opposite lane, and the other guys are revving their engines in the ATVs, and a guy in the dirt bike is. And listen, now they're on the lookout. They're going to try to do anything, but the problem we have is that our illustrious mayor allowed the police department to get down to where we have virtually nobody.
Right. And again, this is an election year, and that's why all of a sudden we're seeing them.
Yeah. Well, they're only doing it, but they can't even do it effectively.
Right. And I want to know, what are they doing with the bikes that they confiscate? Or are they confiscating the bikes?
Probably. It depends on who owns them.
Probably. But, I mean, in Providence, if you get caught...
they crush them.
They crush them. There's no question about it.
Yeah, then maybe Daddy won't buy him another one.
Right.
Yeah, because they do cost money. But, this is the whole thing. We're seeing it's a dangerous thing throughout the country, but we can't let this city become San Francisco, because we see now San Francisco's gone so badly, which was one of the crown jewels of the world, let alone the country. And I know you've been out there numerous times, and I have. It's a travesty. And how did it get there? It's doing exactly what Paul Coogan is doing now. It's a national problem. Well, it's a national problem that was ignored for years. We saw San Francisco begin to have a drug and homeless problem 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And what did they do with it? Nothing. They condoned it.
Right.
They gave them places to camp. And then it became totally out of control. And their police department was allowed to be gutted, and they were hiring people that were illegals. They weren't vetting people. They were so desperate. But how did they get there? It didn't get there overnight. Someone, the leader, is supposed to know. And our leader has been in for over 3 years. Now, police officers leaving and manpower shortages have been around since he got into office, and they just got worse.
Right.
And he allowed it, and now that it's an election year, but as you said, they're addressing it, but they're so undermanned they can't address it.
Right.
And the second factor is that it got this way with no oversight. The mayor of the city of Fall River had 3 different police chiefs. You're going to tell me that those police chiefs never told him we're undermanned? He should have asked the question anyway.
That's right.
He should have asked. And this is the problem. They ignore it until we have, it's just like the city council. Well, if we don't adopt this right now, we're going to get sued. If we don't adopt this right now, we're going to go bankrupt. If we don't do this today,
The state's going to take us over.
The state's going to take us over.
Right.
Until they change the rules where they're not going to take you over and just like become an absolute travesty.
Right.
But this is the problem. Now, ATVs, like he said, it's only 50. What's going to happen this week? I just saw the weather forecast.
85.
It's going to be 80 at the end of the week, and it's going to be 70 basically the entire week. So wait till the weekend. Wait till during the week in the evenings. They're going to terrorize the citizens of Fall River, and then you're going to hear these weak excuses, and that's what they are. They are not, and you hear no solutions.
Right.
No solution, ever, on anything.
You know, this is one of the problems with having a police chief who is contract.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, like the fire department did when they went back to a civil service chief, I think we need to go back to a civil service chief.
Yeah, they only had a contract chief for a very short time.
A very short period of time.
They saw that blow up with Mike Coogan being appointed.
Right.
So the first one that they appoint is someone who is unqualified for the job, but he was a political hack.
Right.
So, and we all know, I still got the letter that I wrote, the editorial that I wrote to him about it, and he lasted 13 days, but then they had to put in a contract chief, but then they realized that you can't do this with public safety.
No.
You can't do it.
Because the chief then becomes beholden to the mayor, and that can tie the chief's hands.
Oh, absolutely.
And because, again, if he doesn't do what the mayor wants, the chief doesn't have a job.
He's no longer the chief.
Right.
And you're right, but and that's the thing. I fought when they turned every department head into contracts. Fire department was the only one that didn't, because I fought that tooth and nail. I wrote numerous letters. I went to the council, and we were the only department to keep a civil service chief until Flanagan got in, and he got real friendly with Michael Coogan, and then they went over. But they found, it's great. It's a great example now. But there's a better example. There was a man called Leo Stapleton. He wrote a book about firefighting called 30 Years on the Line. He was the fire commissioner of the Boston Fire Department. He was also a chief for numerous years on the Boston Fire Department. And that's when they had good fire commissioners, because in Boston, you needed a minimum of 10 years as a chief officer to be appointed commissioner. You couldn't be a plumber or a bartender or a housewife or a bus driver, to be a fire commissioner.
Right.
You actually had to have 10 years, but they've changed that since then. Because when they did that and allowed them to be basically civil service, they got burnt. Because what did Leo Stapleton do? Boston was having financial problems. The mayor at the time cut the fire department drastically. And unlike what we see now with contract chiefs, well, it's going to be hard, but I still think we can give everybody adequate safety. That's BS. Leo Stapleton called a press conference when they made the cuts. And he got up in front of a whole bunch of cameras from all over the state of Massachusetts and all over Boston. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing now because it was a very long time ago. He said, these cuts will not allow the Boston Fire Department to continue interior fire attack any longer. We do not have the manpower. So what that means is that whenever we get a call, if there's a fire, what we are going to do is we are going to protect the other buildings and let that property burn, because we can't go in and do an offensive fire attack. I do not have the manpower. And he said there will be massive property losses in the city of Boston. We will attempt rescues if we need to, but after that, my men are not going to go in these buildings. I do not have sufficient manpower. Well, guess what? He got sufficient manpower. But they didn't like that. So later on, they changed all the rules. They ended up saying, you don't need to be a chief. Why should you know actually what you're talking about?
That's right.
They did what Fall River did. You can be a bus driver, you can be a housewife, you can be a bartender, you can be anything you want, but you'll be a fire commissioner. And you didn't even know we had one fire commissioner, didn't know we had different size hoses on the trucks. Yeah. And he actually said it at a fire commissioners meeting when they had to purchase hose, and he went, oh, they have different sizes? So this is the absurdity of what happens. But then they got rid of that, changed the laws, so the politicians could be politicians, and they hired a retired naval officer to be the commissioner. Now, I don't know who the Boston Fire Commissioner is. I'm no longer involved in that stuff. But again, this shows why public safety, the police chief and a fire chief should be able to stand up without any danger if he's doing his job. Because in civil service, you can't fire people.
Right.
But you can only fire them because they're not doing their job, not because you don't like their political position. And you get to do what Leo Stapleton did. The police chief could have stood up and said, I need more men, and the mayor's doing nothing about it, and I'm going to stop this, that, and the other thing like Stapleton did for the fire in Boston. That was one of the greatest moments I ever saw in all my career as a firefighter. A commissioner standing up and for his men and for the citizens and safety of the people of Boston. But now, look what we got. And along that line, we can segue. Again, lack of, he wasn't paying attention. All these years, he doesn't pay attention. Everything goes on. Housing. We're going to have 23 units, and I gave it to Catholic Social Services, but everything is behind the curtain.
Right.
Behind a magic curtain. So again, and I know you know it, we talked about it maybe a month ago on our show about the head of security being put on administrative leave
Right.
because of inappropriate sexual behavior. Well, it's resurfaced again, and what are they doing again? They're covering it up.
Right.
Nobody can know anything. And because of that, I actually got a text from one of our new possible candidates, Kuganokio. And one of his promises was not only to give us a tax break, he promised to be transparent, which I think Paulie did, but he's never been transparent about anything. Never. Again, we have a situation, and this is the thing.
Well,
these are serious. We're talking about sexual inappropriateness.
How about the complaint from a parent about his daughter being accosted by a male teacher? And they turned around and they're covering that up.
Yeah, you're right. Well, the thing is
that teacher should have been placed on administrative leave that day.
Yeah.
Just with the accusation. But no. Instead, they worked on making the girl look like she was a liar.
Yeah.
This is how your children are being protected by the school department. And that's how the mayor's running the city, like it's the school department.
Right, and everything gets covered up, and they protect all their friends.
Right.
Now, obviously, for somebody to become head of security, we all know you got to be connected over there to get a job. And so he's probably connected. So they're going to say, well, let's try to pull the Terry Sullivan. Let's not talk about it, and maybe it'll go away. Everybody will forget, but they're not going to forget. But these are serious allegations. We had Malone with sexual inappropriateness, and then the thing that never gets asked. And where's the school committee on this? Where's the school committee demanding? Now we got a school committee guy that wants to run for council, so he spent a lot of time talking to Paulie Pockets at the Maplewood Little League. So what is he doing? Getting his marching orders?
Probably.
I don't know. Because, this is the problem. Everybody seems to be walking in the same page. The people need information. This is what happens when you suppress information. You can't do this. I want to know. I want somebody to ask, and I want somebody to reveal, and we have a right, because it's our money. What are the lawsuits against Malone? How much have they cost us already? What are the amount of damages they're asking for? How about all the other lawsuits that are pending in the police department? Nobody knows anything. Now, you've got a child being accosted by someone, you're covering that up. But yet you watch local news. It wasn't a month or so ago I heard school teacher put on administrative leave,
The day of the complaint.
and being charged by the police.
That's right.
Not with an internal investigation, being charged by the police to do the So the police and the school department were going to do the investigation. But not in Paulie world. Not in Paulie world. In Paulie world, everything's beautiful. The mayor, I think the mayor of Wonderful is going to have to make an appearance because, he was on the radio again saying, "Oh, don't worry, the corridor. We're spending $7 million on benches
And lights.
But while people can't pay their rent, while the city, and then they're going to have this meeting tonight with the school department and say how great the city is. And we all know it's crap.
Right.
It's nothing but structural deficits. But Paulie says, "Oh, don't worry, the train is coming down, and it's going to bring restaurants and shops and retail."
But he did pull back a little bit. Remember before how that was going to be the big boom for Fall River? This was going to solve all our problems. Now it's, I don't know if it's going to be a boom.
Well, it's not going to.
And he said that on Channel 10. And I don't know if it's going to be a boom.
Well, but when he's on local radio, he doesn't say that.
That's right.
Paulie, see this guy's nose? If your nose grew every time you lied, you wouldn't be able to fit it in a state. It would already be in Connecticut somewhere because you lie all the time. What do you say? You say you go on Channel 10. It may not be a boom. It may not be a boom. Number one, we don't even know if that train is going to exist in 5 years because we know about the ridership. They closed the bus line.
That's right.
Because of lack of ridership. We know they got a new head of the MBTA, and who knows what he's going to do with fares and stuff to even make it less. And then they're going to be eliminating underperforming things. And it's going to bring retail. It's going to bring... Really? Have you ever opened up a retail store in a city where there's virtually nobody with money to buy your stuff? But you see their master plan, which is flawed, it's like San Francisco. Let's look at San Francisco again. Like I said, and I saw somebody who lived in San Francisco for a very long time, and he said he actually went back there and he cried when he saw the junkies all over the place and the rent. Everybody's fleeing San Francisco.
Right.
Because they had the same plan. They had very high rents. Push all the poor people out. And then we're going to have a wonderful city. We'll all be rich people like Pelosi. But no. The poor people went out and they camped out on the streets. That's right. They took more drugs and they went deeper and deeper into addiction because they were just, there's a malaise and they destroyed one of the most beautiful cities in the United States because of doing exactly this thing. And this is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. This is what Detroit did, and I heard that comparison made over the weekend, because that's what's going to happen in Chicago.
Right.
They elected, Soros threw millions of dollars into the mayoral race, and a progressive candidate who was worse than Lori Lightfoot, which to me that's unimaginable. I mean, I don't know. The troll on crack. It's hard to believe there was somebody worse than her. But this guy's, and I did see him talking. He doesn't want to increase the police force.
God forbid.
He said,
God forbid.
He said, we need more social programs. And we're going to let the crow. Well, right now, Chicago is worse than it's ever been. People are fleeing by the droves. Stores are closing. The $1 Million Mile is disseminated.
Right.
It's gone. If you've ever been to Chicago, the $1 Million Mile is famous, as is the Navy Pier. But this guy wants to actually defund the police, more social programs, so that's going to help put criminals away. And the interesting statistic about that was that the person who was doing the show said, well, I don't know what he thinks is going to happen, because right now the solve rate on murders in Chicago is 20%.
1 out of 5.
That means 80% of the murderers in Chicago are still running around the streets to murder again. And this guy wants to not police the city.
Right.
But this is what happens to these dreamers who live in this manufactured world like that doesn't
Well,
really
I don't know if you
exist.
I don't know how much of the Weekend Flush. I know you read it
Yeah.
every week. And that's why when it didn't go out last weekend, everyone was all nervous.
I know. Yeah, well, it was kind of hard for you to write the Weekend Flush last year.
But I spoke about where were you in the 1980s?
Yeah.
Where were you in the 1990s? Where were you in the 2000s? Okay? In the past 3 decades, where have you been? You voted for these people over and over again. Have they changed your life significantly? Have they changed your life significantly? Yeah, they have. They taxed me more.
Yeah, they changed it for the worse.
That's right. They made it for the worse.
Yeah.
So don't you think it's time to say, you know what, Linda, I'm sorry, but you haven't really done anything to save me money. And every time you get the opportunity to vote to save money, you vote the other way. And you justify it. Sorry, no. You know, Brad, really, you don't do anything. You gotta move on. You gotta move on. It's time to move on. And that's why I firmly believe that this city needs term limits.
Well, I believe we all do, but the problem in the country is you get these rich people that throw millions of dollars into elections, all over like
Right.
Soros did, to elect these people. But there's going to be a revolution in this country because, we found how much the media lies and the way they manipulate the narrative. So you've got, on a national level, you've got a president who talks about violence, yet he's condoning violence. He's telling transgenders to buy weapons and fight for themselves, and we got your back. Well, it's fine to say they have a right to be anything they want to be, but you don't encourage violence. He always talks about white supremacists, but, we've had 3 or 4 that have killed people. That's not, I don't care who you are, transgender, not transgender, whatever you are. Murder is not acceptable. Our society is beginning to decay. They are actually condoning these things and making excuses because of their political agenda. And you're seeing gradually the country, they're fed up. It takes a lot. You got to shovel a lot of manure down people's throats. But ultimately, they will revolt. And you're going to see it in this country because if you look at Detroit was mentioned, it's irredeemable now. It's
Right.
done. Detroit is dead.
Well, I remember when
will-
you couldn't even they couldn't even give a house away for $1.
That's right. Couldn't get and that was decades ago.
That's right.
Decade ago. They screwed Detroit up doing what they're doing in Chicago so badly. The next city to go under is Chicago.
Right.
And then we see what they're doing in California. It's insane.
And have you noticed that they're business centers?
Yeah.
The communities that they're attacking are business centers.
Yeah.
I mean, Chicago. Many financial companies have major offices in Chicago. San Francisco, Los Angeles, all throughout California. Big financial offices there. New York City, big financial offices, center of the financial world as far as a lot of people are concerned. And this is what's happening. I mean, we're looking at New York. New York is at least trying to do something. But when you look at it, it's not too far behind Chicago and Detroit.
No, you're right. But the problem is but what they do is, because lack of information, and that's why we try to give you as much information as we can. You look at the mainstream media, you get nothing. You look at the Herald News, they don't talk about the ATVs.
Right.
It's only after the fact. It's government by crisis. They didn't know the police. Well, they're not doing their reporting. You listen to the radio station, and you got these spinologists on there who are always saying, well, you know, some people like what he's doing. Well, I don't know who. I haven't run into an average Fall Riverite who likes the fact that their rents are now nearly doubled.
Right.
That their tax bill is going up, that their water bill is going up. I don't know about you, but as you said, CJ, and you said it numerous times, and I've said it, you have to vote. The bottom line is that you have to vote. You can't say, well, it is what there's nothing we can do. There is something you can do about it. You've got to send these people a message. You've got to tell them that this is not acceptable. Turning your head to the city being destroyed, you know, and it's always something. Calling it a gateway city was going to change the Fall River. Bringing in a battleship, that was going to change Fall River. Bringing in monuments, it's going to change. Bringing in the carousel, as we call them, derby horses, just like we call water fountains bubblers.
Yep.
Proud of it. We have our own jargon.
We have our own jargon. That's it.
Right.
And we're very proud of that.
But the thing is that you can't ignore this.
No, you can't.
We're doing in Fall River, and he's saying it, and that's the thing that's mind-boggling. He has the audacity to get on the radio and say, well, in the long run term, higher rents are going to be a good thing. Really? For who? Who do you know except your rich friends who are not going to come down here? And not the retail stores, if they come down, they're not going to stay. Well, look what happened. Jerry Remy had a lot of money.
Yeah.
He opened that place. How long did he last down there? He sold it. Now it's running again, but it's running on a shoestring, but it's attached to the housing that's people are from Newport there.
Right.
You know, but this is nuts. You know, you can't. People, this is probably the most critical election we'll have in the city of Fall River, because I know a lot of people are saying down the line we're in trouble. Well, guess what? If you give Paul Coogan one more term, this city will be in receivership within 5 years, and I can guarantee it.
It's really a shame, you know, because I know why people say they don't vote. There's a lot of apathy in this city. And it's like, my vote doesn't matter. My vote doesn't count. You know, because I vote for this one, somebody votes for the other one, and we cancel each other's vote. Granted, that does happen, okay? And we know it does. You know, and we know it when you don't get what you want, because you can't always get what you want. There's a song that says that.
That's right. But you can get what you need.
But you can get what you need.
Life.
That's right.
But sometimes you can get what you need.
That's right. And what we need is a change. We need a change in the face of Fall River. We need a change in the management of Fall River, the leadership of Fall River. We need a change in the financial structure of Fall River. We need a change. And we need it now. And we need it badly, because if we don't get it, we're the ones that are going to pay, the taxpayer. And then people are going to start doing like they do in San Francisco. They're going to start fleeing Fall River to someplace else, even though the rents are probably just as high there, but they won't have to pay the taxes that they pay here, or the fees, especially the water fee, the sewer fee, the rainwater tax. I mean, come on, give me a break. Those things aren't real. The water fee is.
Truth and transparency is what we need, and
Definitely.
we're getting neither.
That's right, and we are getting neither. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday.